Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to my van down by the river. So, I wanted to talk today a little bit about what it will finally look like when the right decides to resist. Don't, don't, don't. So, we've seen what it looks like when the left decides to resist. They riot in the streets, they set their own neighborhoods on fire. They go around finding people and throwing milkshakes on them. They hit them with bike locks. They do a lot of things. They spit on them. They call them Nazis. But what would it look like when the right finally decides to do something in return? What would it look like if the right decided to resist? Well, one possible way might be through strikes. So, what if everyone just decided not to go to work today? Well, that would hurt my bottom line a little bit if I had a full-time job. That's probably 1/20th of my income for the month. Just poof. Not to mention the risk of losing my job. But what would happen if we all did it just for one day? So, massive labor strikes, or even surgical labor strikes. For instance, what if all of the trash men decided not to pick up the trash in an entire city? What if all the cops decided to have blue flu? You see, this kind of disruption in daily life could occur if people collectively started to resist on a large scale. Boycotts, for instance. What if everyone on the right decided to stop making YouTube content for one day and stop using social media for one day? Wouldn't be a big deal to all of us, but it might actually be a major blow to some of these high-tech firms like, well, the one I just mentioned and many others. What if we decided to stop using Facebook for an entire week? How much money would they lose? What if people decided to resist by not paying their taxes? What if people who collect payroll taxes just stopped collecting them? What if people stopped paying their quarterly taxes? What if people stopped sending in the contributions to Social Security? There was an instance when George W. Bush was the governor of the state of Texas, and Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. And the federal government was trying to enforce a national requirement for all motorcyclists to wear a helmet. And the state of Texas just didn't like that kind of arbitrary rule. If people want to go around risking their own brain matter, that's between them and God. And Texans don't believe that you should force people to wear a helmet when, in fact, the only life they would be saving would be their own. And so they stood up to the federal government and went, we'll not be requiring all of our motorcyclists to mandatorily wear a helmet. And so there was this big kind of, let's see, urination contest between Bush and Clinton when Bush was still the governor of the state of Texas and not president yet. And Bush kind of won the argument hands down, because the first thing that the Clinton threatened the state of Texas with is Clinton threatened to withhold all of the highway and the national highway funds that are sent to Texas, that are part of the Texas Department of Transportation's efforts to maintain the interstate system. So when when Bill threatened to not send the federal funds, George W. Bush went on television and said, well, what if we just don't send you the funds to begin with? Because the funds that you're talking about sending us are the funds that we've already sent to you, and you're just sending back to us. What if we don't send you any of the funds? What if we collect the federal taxes, but we don't send them to you? Instead, we use them to maintain our own roads. And he kind of gave them the finger. He earned a couple of votes from me out of that, I gotta say, that I thought that was a pretty good move. So, ultimately, the money of the people belongs to the people. What if they stopped sending it into the government? Could it cripple the government? Could it slow the government down? There's a lot of things that could happen. People think about the gun owners and think about what happened if they rose up. So Obviously, there's the fears enumerated in the fictional tale of the Handmaiden's Tale, that there would be the political assassinations, one might assume, and even lynchings and things like that, I suppose, could occur if the right rose up. But people don't think about the economic power of the right. Most of the food in the United States is operated and functions, and whether it's cattle or whether it's farming, everything from corn to beef and everything in between. Most of the people that make that happen, whether it's the planting, the harvesting, or the trucking of the goods, that falls at the hands of people on the right wing. What if they just decided to not send the food to the blue states? What if they just held back and didn't send any goods and services into the cities? What if the people on the right's answer to all of this, and their method of resisting, is to simply cut off the cities from any of the food sources, cut the power between because the power stations and the power generators are not located in the cities, they're located outside the cities. So the cities could be isolated in an old style, medieval style siege that would be pretty easy to pull off, just because some of the right people decided not to go to work. Don't. I think the left often worries about the right's power when it comes to firearms, but they underestimate the fact that the right-wing people make this world go round. YouTube and Google and Facebook may run on the left power, but the food, the energy, the gasoline, all of that stuff rests on the shoulders of the right-wing conservative people. I mean, it is the red states that produce the food. It's the red workers that get the coal out of the ground. It's the right-wing farmers that bring the crops to market. So, I think that in the event of any kind of retaliation or uprising from the right, one might really stretch your imagination to try to figure out exactly what direction it might come from. And a lot of people think about, a shooting war in a civil war, but there's a lot of stuff short of shooting that you could do to each other that could definitely be powerful and devastating and potentially deadly without ever firing a shot. So, a lot of people are focused on what the left does in their resistance, but I just pray that the right kind of stays asleep, because no one wants to see what's going to happen when the right rises up. God save our republic.